Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Oh, cause very charges.
Hello, occultists. I am Richard Bigley, and recording remotely with me today, I have
Murray,
Food Gallifrey,
Leon Filger,
and our special Beaverton guest.
Hello, I'm Scott Pinkerton. I write for Funnies.
And of course, we got
the soundboard demon, which I thought you were going to do before the guest because I'm supposed to be important, but whatever. Fuck you, Richard.
I'm much better.
Not rude.
Rotten hell.
That's the plan, yeah.
Yes, that's what I figured. You know,
that's literally his retirement plan. Rats on a sulfuric acid lake.
Is there a pension in hell?
Well, we don't have a pension as much because we don't. Well, like we get paid, but we also don't get paid. It's a whole thing.
Well, there's no pension, but there is a guaranteed living income.
Well, yeah, there's a guaranteed living income, so we all get, like, we don't have to pay for food, we don't have to pay for anything. And we do get to retire to Florida, because let's remember, canonically, Florida is hell.
So it's kind of like being in the Canadian military, then, where they pay for your food, your shelter, but it's still hell.
Yeah, because they just ask you for a couple eternities worth of work, stabbing people in the face with spikes, or tickling the feet of sad people. To get them happy again so we can crush their spirits, you know.
Oh, I get it. Okay, yeah.
It sounds like a multi-level marketing scheme. I'm sorry, I had to say it.
It does.
I hear that a lot, and I just have to let everyone know that that's not what we're doing. It's not multi-level marketing. It's a pyramid scheme.
It's network marketing.
Vertically integrated.
Yeah, we just vertically integrate both the causing of people to sin and also punishing the sins that we punish, which are also pretty bullshit. It's great. It's a great time.
I would like a brochure when we're done here.
The hell is a bunch of boss babes.
Is it time for What's Your Poison?
I'm working on this, hey? I haven't even started
Calm
yet.
down. Get that sand out of your vagina, Leon.
Yeah, fuck. Benjamin Disraeli said, "Justice is truth in action." And like the average Family Guy viewer, you may not know who he is. Note that's a reference to season 3, episode 4. Anyway, truth and justice are inseparable, and thinkers, activists, legal minds have held this for millennia. This is what's concerning about our deepfake and post-truth and fake news society. And I know, like, B-Curbs 1001 is probably thinking, oh man, is this another politics episode? And they would be wrong. So what if we built a machine that could tell you when someone was lying? Well, I ain't lying when I tell you that I need some poison.
Solid.
So, what's your poison?
Richard, that was a fucking solid intro, dude.
Now we gotta say the special things. This What's Your Poison is sponsored by District Brewing out of Regina, Saskatchewan. The okay city in Saskatchewan, I guess.
City that rhymes with fun.
City that rhymes with fun.
Yeah, they have deemed us fit to send us 4 different beers. So over the next couple of episodes, we'll be reviewing some of these beers. And I hear Leon wants to talk about this first one. So Leon, what are we drinking?
Okay, from District Brewing Company in Regina, Saskatchewan, this is the Marston Lager beer. And
Marston, it's a long A.
Yeah, whatever the fuck, dude. Who gives a shit?
It's a
Fuck off.
beer.
This beer is fucking delicious. This is incredible. I was so prepared to be disappointed like I am with every craft beer, and this lager is delicious. Holy shit. Like, I would rate this like I don't even know what the hell I would rate this. I've got no euphemisms for this, but I'm going to give this beer a 9.5 out of 10. If you're in Saskatchewan or you're somewhere where you can obtain this beer is definitely great. It's not too either hops or malt forward. It's a really crisp beer. It would be good on a hot day. It's good on a cold day. It's -9 in Saskatoon right now, and this beer is just fantastic. So fucking District Brewing Company, A, thanks for sponsoring us. B, thanks for this fucking awesome beer that I'm drinking for free.
I love this Marston lager. It's like I've always kind of been like a District Brewing stan. I have liked them since before they were cool, and Mr. Sage Murray and I.
Before they were cool. Okay.
True. Yep, hipster Sage. And Mr. Sage Murray and I both love this beer. And it's 5.3% alcohol per can, which is also nice.
Whenever I try things before they're cool, I burn my tongue, so I've learned to not.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's nice. Like I will drink the can, I will finish the can. It's not like, say, dill pickle vodka where I will just like not touch it after the first like sip. I don't know. To me, it's a little bit on the hoppy side. I'm not really a big fan of hops, but I guess to each their own.
Our version of a Munich Fest beer pours bronze and incomparably smooth with a round, slightly sweet palate and a deep, toffee-ish aroma. The appetizing bitterness serves to balance the malt.
Unser Festbier von Munich. I don't know. I'm tired of translating. Never mind.
It's a good try.
It's got an IBU of 25, so it's not terribly offensive. It's good.
That sounds delicious, and I wish I could partake.
What are you having,
too,
Scotty?
I am just here. Let's see if I can get it. Very nice. It's a Waterloo Brewing Company Amber, and it's 6.8%. So it is.
There you go.
And I will be with this beer that you have in spirit, if not in practice.
Can I mail him my homegrown? I mean, he's not buying it from me. I could mail him my homegrown weed, right? Because weed's
no reason why
legal.
not.
Sending weed by mail is legal, and I'm not selling it to him. Is that cool?
So.
Is that a thing you can do in Canada?
Absolutely. And then if I were to contribute to the Patreon completely separately, that would be two separate things that are not at all related.
Yeah. Well, you're already a Patreon, right? So there you go.
Yes.
Canadians can send cannabis to other adults of legal age. Shipments must follow federal, provincial, and municipal government regulations. View them here. Maximum weights vary based on cannabis product type. Send recreational cannabis within Canada using one of our shipping services that includes tracking from the Canada Post website.
Good. On Purelator, it says too, individuals can mail cannabis to another individual as long as it was purchased from a licensed producer or grown at home.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think that also applies to cocaine. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but it does sound similar.
If you would like to mail us some cocaine, just hit us up at all pod.
District Brewing cocaine. I am a fan of this, but it's still, for some reason, a little bit hoppy.
What's the email? I forget.
Feedback at offpod.ca. And also, our best way to stop the lawyers and the crime people from coming down on us, I believe, is we just have to have the disclaimer, don't fucking at me, pig.
If you wonder like what your Patreon bucks are paying for, it's paying for hardware. We're not taking a cut. We're just doing everything we can to reinvest into the podcast and put out the best quality product we can. And every Patreon dollar counts. And honestly, like the affinity and warm fuzzies I get from every single one of you who donate $1 a month or in the 666 club or whatever, you guys are absolutely fantastic and make this podcast worth doing every week. Like if it weren't for the fact that you were keeping us afloat, we would have to sign with, a bigger player or be represented by, another company. And we want to stay independent forever. Like we're trying to build this media empire around ourselves where everyone's got independent content. So, and it's your Patreon dollars that are making that happen. So, I mean, yeah, from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so much for supporting independent media.
And like your Patreon dollars, the bond between truth and justice, well, that is something that we have pondered for centuries. We end up asking ourselves, how do we know if someone is lying?
Do you think you could tell by my voice that I'm lying? My favorite color is red. My favorite color is yellow. My favorite color is green. Which one of those were correct? My favorite color is green. My phone is at 38% power. My phone is at 23% power. My phone is at 81% power. Which time was I telling the truth? My phone is at 23% power. The first town I grew up in was Peyton. The first town I grew up in was Maidstone. The first town I grew up in was Delmas. Which time was I telling the truth? The first town I grew up in was Delmas. I've never skydived. I've never bungee jumped. I've never been on a roller coaster. Which time was I telling the truth? I've never been skydiving. My first vehicle was a car. My first vehicle was a van. My first vehicle was a truck. Which time was I telling the truth? My first vehicle was a truck. I have a scar on my knee from a bed spring. I have a scar on my knee from a loose nail on a chair. I have a scar on my knee from a rock being thrown at me. Which time did I tell the truth? I have a scar on my knee from a bed spring. The last picture I saved on my phone was of Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls. The last picture I saved on my phone was of the robot devil. The last picture I have saved on my phone is a futuristic battlesuit. Which time did I tell the truth? The last picture I have saved on my phone is the robot devil. How did you do in this little test? As well as you thought you would? Did you get one or two correct? Just how hard is this truth-soothing thing anyway? Alrighty, back to the main show.
Yeah, I fucking nailed that segue. Up yours, Robert Evans. Anyway. Well, in research done by Martina Visinovia, something like that, about early lie detection techniques in like the 11th century Europe, we can generally accept that God is just and would not let a righteous man suffer. In the 11th century Europe, if an accused person was told to place their hand in a boiling pot of water, and of course if they were truthful and honest, God would not let harm come to them because, a righteous man would not suffer. So if they did suffer by putting their hand in a boiling pot of water, God did not protect them, and they were a liar.
What?
Yeah, that's it. That's how you prove lie. That's lie detectors. Peace out for Occulte Veritatis. I am Richard.
I mean, call me a skeptic, but I think God intervened exactly 0% of the time. So like, it's like, oh, another 60 liars today. What do you know? Like,
so like eventually we figured out that you can't judge a person's guilt through magic forces. So the idea
did we?
Maybe, I don't know. We're working on it. We're getting there at some point. And I mean, that's just like Europe. So I mean, there's like other cultures around the world at the time that are doing different things. So like there was like physical manifestations of guilt and dishonesty that other cultures have kind of gripped or like held on to. So like in 1000 BC China, suspects would have to take like a mouthful of dry rice, and if they spit the rice out and the rice was still dry, that would mean that they were experiencing guilt, because if you're feeling guilty, your mouth gets dry. So if you spit out a mouthful of rice and it's still dry, well then you were having dry mouth and therefore were guilty.
I gotta say, I don't think I would ever have a dry mouth if it was filled with rice. I think it would absolutely be sopping wet.
I mean, it would be just moist.
As a sushi eater, I am accustomed to having a mouthful of rice, but it is not dry, but rather delicious and full of fish and nicely vinegared rice.
This episode's sponsored by District Brewing and just the general concept of sushi, apparently.
I love sushi. Fuck.
Me too. Fuck, I want some now.
If you're listening to this episode, go out right now and get some sushi. In Greece, at around 300 BC, they like tried to detect lies by using people's pulse. Using blood metrics, would be a common technique, especially even in modern times. There was an Italian criminologist, Caesar Lombroso, who invented a device in 1881 that would detect lies by using blood pressure, and then it would record the blood pressure, to a graph. William M. Marston kind of built on this idea, also incorporating like breathing measurements in 1921. And a few years later, there was a John Larson and a Leonard Keel who would create a cardiopneumo psychograph, which is more commonly known as the polygraph.
There we go.
Yeah, so this iteration of the, I guess, quote, lie detector would log your breathing rate and blood pressure changes, and changes in bioelectric reactivity of the skin. So the idea is that you can like measure responses and how they like work in ratios of these responses, and somehow through that you can tell if someone's being truthful or not.
Basically, polygraph test is a lie detector test. That's what everybody knows them as. It basically just measures the reactions in your body to questions.
And for the Bloomington Police Department, this is Detective Harm's field of expertise.
We use it for several different reasons. One would be to clear somebody of a crime. If they're a suspect, it's a good way to clear them of it, or it's a good way to confirm that they are the person that we're looking for. A lot of times it helps us with interviewing people, that type of thing. Polygraphs aren't admissible in court, so we can't bring the results into court and say, here, he failed the test or he passed the test, that type of thing. But it's more of an investigative aid.
Rather than just explaining how a polygraph works, Detective Harms showed me, and that first meant getting hooked up to the machine.
There's two pneumo tubes that we put on. One is for the upper chest, one is for the belly. Males are typically belly breathers, females are typically chest breathers. We measure them both to cover both areas. And we look for slowing of the breathing, stopping breathing. People typically, if they tell a lie, they either hold their breath or their breathing slows way down, so we look for that. The cardio, your blood pressure. In that, we look for spikes in your blood pressure, your heart rate, that type of thing. That's an indicator of somebody being deceptive. So what I did is I asked you to write a number down 1 through 7, write it down on a piece of paper, fold it up, put it in your pocket. I didn't see what number you wrote down.
I was instructed to hold still, keep my feet flat on the floor, and fingers spread apart.
Is the number you wrote down number 2?
No.
Is the number you wrote down number 4?
No.
Is the number you wrote down number 7?
No. Once the test was finished, Detective Harms examined my reactions to each of the 7 numbers to determine which one I had wrote down.
So your breathing slows there. I'm going to go with number 6. There you go. All right. When a person tells a lie, they relive that event. And it's the fear of being caught in the lie that triggers, it's the autonomic nervous system is what it's called. And that is broken down into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And what that is there's the phrase fight, flight, or freeze. The adrenaline rush that you get, that's the sympathetic portion of the autonomic nervous system that kicks in to protect the body. The parasympathetic then tries to bring the body back down to homeostasis, normal, everyday life, that type of thing. A person coming in taking a polygraph, I basically ask them, have you watched a scary movie before? They typically say yes. I'm like, as you're watching the scary movie, the scary part comes, you start to get the goosebumps, the adrenaline rush. The scary part comes, you jump, you scream, whatever it is that you do, and then you go back down to normal. That's the autonomic nervous system in the body. I can't control that with the polygraph. They can't control that. It's a natural reaction in the body, and that's basically what it measures.
Detecting the conductivity of the skin, is that a sweat thing? Like as you get more sweaty, your skin becomes more conductive?
I don't know. It's like they probably run some sort of thing through you to like measure what kind of electricity is flowing through your skin or what kind of voltage they can get off you as an individual. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all bullshit.
That reminds me of that like Scientology hold cans shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the thetan measuring, whatever.
Thetan measuring, yeah. It's as scientific as measuring your thetans, really. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, using the ratios of like blood pressure to breathing to electro reactivity, they would be able to tell if you were telling the truth or if you were being a bullshitter. Of course, changes to all of these things can be caused by any number of factors, not just being dishonest.
See, that it's something like that I always, even as a kid, like, because the classic scene in movies is like they got them hooked up to a lie detector and they're like, all right, we're gonna interrogate you. Would you not be nervous as hell just being in that scenario?
Oh fuck yeah! Well, in my early 20s, I wanted to be a 911 operator, and to do that job, you have to go through like that lie detector interrogation process, and that's what stopped me. I didn't want to go in that chair, and if I would have gone in that chair, I would have been nervous as fuck because they give you the whole questionnaire beforehand, and there's some shit on there that I would have had to admit to them, like I shoplifted before, that I smoked weed before, like shit like that. So I would have been nervous as fuck in that chair.
That's like I have anxiety, so like even just sitting here, like I'm completely at ease, but I'm pouring sweat just because that's like a natural reaction.
I was interrogated by the police once, and they wanted to give me a lie detector test, and their line was like, "Why would you not want to take the lie detector test if it clears your name?" And I'm like, "Because it's not really all that accurate, and I have an anxiety disorder." So I eventually decided, no, I'm not going to do the lie detector test, and I refused, and the case was eventually dropped against me.
I was making probably $700-800 a month as a sergeant. I could make that every week running polygraph tests off duty easily. So I signed up and started working off duty running pre-employment polygraph, because back then everybody had to take polygraph tests to get a job, whether it's a store clerk or bank teller or whatever. I never did get as corrupt. I was a little bit corrupt because I'd lied about how it worked and convinced people it worked when I knew damn well it didn't. But I wasn't as bad as most of them. It's sickening after a while. Like, for instance, they'd brag in their little meetings. Well, I hit Eckert Drugs, which is a local drugstore here, for 20 tests to fill 2 openings. What that means is making $150 a head in 1972 to run a 15-minute test, and he deliberately failed as many people as he could so he could keep cranking them through there to fill 2 fucking openings. That's wrong. There's no other way to frame it. That's wrong. Now, they started taking it even further. They started using it as a requirement in the federal government. Every job with intelligence or police or any law enforcement in the federal, state, or local government has to take a polygraph test. That's bullshit. We're relying on a total fraud to protect our national security. It justifies their existence. Look at what this guy admitted to me that you guys would never have found out had it not been for me. Boy, he's got some deep, dark secrets that were hiding in there, and I'll weasel them out of him. But boy, you better owe me, because he could have slipped through if it hadn't been for me. I figured out how to control every tracing on the chart myself. Some buddies of mine came in. I was starting my day shift, and they were finishing up the midnight shift. They came in for a cup of coffee, and they was telling me about a chase they got into the night before. He was shooting at us, we was shooting at him. My partner lost control of the car. We went out across the bar ditch, tore through a barbed wire fence, said, man, pucker factor was way up there. Man, I was pinching donuts out of that seat. I thought, pucker factor? I heard that in Vietnam, say, pucker factor. That means they're going down a trail scary as hell, and your asshole's tightening up because you know you're going to get shot in the next second or two. So I said, okay, well, that's a physiological response to fear, isn't it? I hooked myself up to Polygraph, tightened up my anal sphincter muscle like I was trying to stop a bowel movement, blew out the best cardio tracing you ever saw. Now I know how to control everything. I know what the breathing pattern looks like, and I know the GSR mirrors the blood pressure. Because the blood pressure increase, GSR goes along with it. I got control of everything. Now all I got to do is figure out which question to switch, when to react, when not to, and I've got it wired. We can't sit here and evaluate the polygraph technique because it's bullshit. What we got to do instead is we got to say, okay, what are your rules? What do you say constitutes a perfect, truthful chart? They say, and they act accordingly, if you have no reaction on any relevant question, and you have a reaction on at least one controlled question, then you have passed the test, truthfully. Because why? Because that little squirrely question about whether you ever stole anything from someone who trusted you bothers you more than all the really important questions. Don't make sense, but that's the way it is. They're mixing apples and oranges. There's no way you can compose a control question that has the same emotional impact as a relevant question. They try to do it, but it doesn't work. So we're not going to evaluate their technique. I can do that myself. I teach people how to play by their rules and produce what they say they want to see. That's how they make the game played. That's how we'll play it.
And I'm pretty sure this episode is probably going to come out after the False Confessions episode. So listen to that one to hear my story of my 2 interrogations, because those were fun.
The galvanic skin response. Even if you can't feel yourself sweating, nearly imperceptible changes in skin conductivity can tell scientists a lot about what you're experiencing. This is from the Neuro Fundraising Lab. I don't know who the fuck they are. And in fact, social scientists have studied how the body's sweat response is linked to emotion since the 1930s. So yeah, it's about sweat.
Exactly. Like I said, there's a lot of other things that out there that can make you sweat and have different bioconnectivity and different heart rates and different breathing rates and shit. And even, I mean, just being sat down with a bunch of fucking cops who are like yelling at you questions will fucking make anybody kind of on edge. So, I mean, whatever, you know?
I'm a privileged white kid with 0 criminal record from like a well-off family, and I was nervous in that interrogation chair. Like, what if I had a record? What if I was like not white? What if I was a minority? Like, what if the police were targeting me for whatever reason? Like, Christ.
Well, at this point, other, Canada and the US, a lie detector is not considered admissible. Other countries, they would consider such as Japan, would consider that to be admissible in court. So, I mean, well, Japan accepts this as possible evidence. They are over there, we are over here. So let's talk about us. Yeah, so there's like 2 polygraph techniques. There's the control question technique and the guilty knowledge test. So the control question technique is the suspect is sat down and asked a whole bunch of irrelevant questions to kind of get an idea of like a baseline. So I'd be like, is your name Oud Gallifrey? And then of course, Oud Gallifrey sitting in the chair would be all like, yes, because it's your real name. And clearly. And so, they would just kind of ask questions to establish a baseline. And then there would become the questions that they were seeking answers to. So, they'd be asking about different items around a house, which could be used to commit a murder, that sort of thing. And like we kind of talked about before, being sat down with a bunch of fucking cops hooked up to a machine that's just kind of like wiggling around as it measures shit, can cause anxiety in both innocent people and guilty people. So like really trying to measure that is just fucking bullshit, unreliable, not scientific at all. And then this starts to lead to like an interrogation style of questioning. And when you do that, when you move from like general questions to some sort of interrogation style, there's, certainly the possibility of the questioner, asking questions that could taint their answers and affect how people respond. And yeah, like I said, see the false confession episode kind of about that stuff.
I noticed you were looking at that when I came in.
Yeah.
It's an antique polygraph machine.
Is that what that is? Because I've seen these before, but I never saw one actually up close.
You know what? Why don't you try that on? Okay. I'll help you. Don't worry. You'll enjoy this. All right.
Looks complicated. Now, these aren't 100% accurate, right? They're...
Well, you'd be surprised how accurate they are. They can tell fairly easily if someone's lying or not. Now I'm going to ask you some questions, and all you have to do is answer yes or no.
Okay.
All right. Let's give it a whirl. Did you fly on an airplane today?
Yes, I did.
No peeking. Did we eat pot roast for dinner tonight?
Yes.
Was it undercooked?
No, it was rare. It was a little rare for my taste. But I
would... Just kidding. I'm just... Relax, relax. The needles are jumping. Have you ever watched pornographic videos?
No. I mean, well, I don't...
Yes or no?
Then there's the guilty knowledge test, where it is done by a tester who actually doesn't know about the crime. So the guy asking you questions doesn't actually know fuck all about the crime that they're questioning you about. Knowledge is tested on things that an innocent person would just simply not know the answers to. So, for example, did the person die from being hit with a baseball bat, or did they die from being hit with a golf club or a table leg? An innocent person really wouldn't know because they weren't there. And so from that, they kind of rate the suspect's responses when the correct answer is mentioned. Because in theory, if I killed someone with a golf club, I wouldn't respond to the baseball bat. But when they say golf club, I would respond, physiologically. And then when they say table leg, I wouldn't be responding. So my response when they say golf club, I would would give it away, or would give away that I knew something, or I was involved in it, or whatever the case would be. Again, there really isn't any scientific basis about that.
Just if even if there was scientific basis to that, like, who's to say you didn't witness someone 10 years ago hit someone with a golf club? You don't they don't know.
Well, precisely, exactly. Like it's completely pseudoscience bullshit. And the fact that people are like, oh yeah, we should just, make this as part of our court routine process, it's just nonsense. There's nothing to support it.
Well, it just seems to make it seems to connect so many of the things we talked about before. Lie detectors were once admitted for years and years because some lawyer convinced a court to let it in, and then it became precedent, and then it became as good as evidence after that, whether it was evidence or not. And it seems to be just another tool the justice system can use to pressure people. And it seems to make the fundamental assumption that the only reason somebody can be anxious in a chair is because they're being dishonest. That seems to be a huge leap.
Well, precisely. And, but I mean, given all things considered, this method is sort of considered to be a better method than the other one, the controlled question technique, just because if the guy asking the questions doesn't know anything about the crime, and the person sitting in the chair may or may not know anything about it, or if they were guilty would only know about it, would be considered a better questioning method, because the questions aren't likely to actually influence the results. So in far as the reliability of the lie detector, the National Research Council has found no effectiveness to this test. It was proposed that at some point they would use the polygraph to detect spies or security risks. And then the National Research Council sent out a news release, and it was literally titled "Polygraph Testing Too Flawed for Security Screening." So it's not even a criminal matter. It's like, do we hire you to check for terrorists at the airport? And the National Research Council is like, this technique is too flawed. You shouldn't even hire people to screen for terrorists at the airport. It is such a bullshit system.
That's wild. Do they? Is it as common anymore? Like, I know it was kind of like in the 80s and 90s. I don't know. You could see it everywhere, but like, do people still use it?
I mean, people must still use it, but in terms of like legal admissibility or whatever, it means fuck all. Like, like you can't. There's nothing to show this or to be definitive about it.
It may not show up in the courtroom, but I think it like applies legal pressures like at a lower level. Like, cops that become cops, at least in Canada, I don't know how it is in the States. Maybe it's like that in the States too, but in Canada, you have to go through a lie detector interview that can be like 8 to 12 hours long to become a cop. And that kind of like, that seems to impose on the idea in the cop that like lie detectors are accurate and can suss out correct and incorrect information. And lie detectors are also used as interrogation techniques, like tools to get people to admit things. So it seems to be sort of training cops to believe in the validity of these things, even though like they aren't admissible in the courtroom. So it can help, it can help direct like pressures that way, I think.
Well, think, I don't know, like even in like the insurance industry, let's say we were like, hey, we think you set your house on fire, but if you sit down with a lie detector test and we just ask you a bunch of questions, then we can grant you coverage. Like at that point, would you, especially if you were somebody who had set your own house on fire to collect insurance money, would you sit down with a lie detector to get this coverage, knowing that at the end of the day, it's all bullshit anyway, and they'd have to pay your claim? All they would have would be the lie detector evidence. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, it seems more like an intimidation factor, to try to like suss people out or whatever.
I ran polygraph examinations, thousands of them, between 1972 and 1979. And I never once believed that the polygraph was capable of detecting deception. Polygraph is not a test. It's an intense interrogation, and the only part the polygraph plays is to frighten and intimidate a person into making a confession or an admission. It doesn't record truth or deception. There is no such thing as a lying reaction. It records nervousness. The reaction that would brand you as a liar only indicates deception about 50% of the time. Anybody can pass any lie detector test by simply duplicating the physiological response to fear on demand at the appropriate time. What the polygraph records is your blood pressure, your pulse rate. It also shows what's called the galvanic skin response. That's where electrodes are placed on the first and third fingers of your right hand, and it records the sweat activity in your hand. Then there are pneumograph tubes placed around your chest and stomach that record your breathing. Any number of innocent stimuli can and do cause the exact same reaction that would brand you as a liar. And the more well-developed your sense of conscience, the more likely you are to flunk a polygraph examination, and the more of an old thief and the more hardened your conscience, the better your chances of passing it. Take a quarter out of your pocket and flip that sucker. If it's heads, they're lying. If it's tails, they're telling the truth. That's exactly the same degree of accuracy that this polygraph instrument has. In order to pass a polygraph examination, you have to understand how a polygraph is scored. There are two different types of questions, relevant and control. Now, the relevant questions are obviously those that pertain to the point at issue. Is your first name Jenna?
Yes.
Did you tell the complete truth on your job application?
Yes.
Control questions then are interspersed. Have you ever stolen anything? Have you ever lied to anyone who trusted you? Besides what you've told me, have you ever lied to get out of trouble?
No.
You have to show no reaction whatsoever on the relevant questions. Is your first name Jenna? That's your first relevant. Nice and calm and even, no major fluctuations at all. And you have to show a reaction on the control questions, because what they do is they compare your reactions. Now here's your first control question. See how high that GSR went, how erratic the breathing? You can tell that, take that across the street and you can tell which question bothered you.
Yeah.
And here's relevant again. Nice and calm, nice and calm, nice and calm. Now how do you do this? So utterly simple. On all the relevant questions, you think about laying on the beach and watching the waves gently rolling into the shore, thinking nice, calm, relaxing thoughts. Is there anything in your background that would disqualify you from getting this job?
No.
On the control questions, you think about falling off of a building and smashing your guts out on the sidewalk below. Besides what you've told me, have you ever stolen anything else?
No.
Thinking of that frightening scenario induces a stress reaction that causes a reaction on the control questions. No reaction on the relevance, reaction on the controls. Pass.
Yeah, like it's almost like the lie detector like plays the part of the bad cop in that scenario. Like the lie detector is there to like put that pressure on. Like, well, the machine says you're full of shit, so like what are we gonna do about that? Like that kind of thing.
Well, and most people probably don't know like how shaky lie detectors are. So when they see that, they're like, "Oh, it'll prove me like innocent or whatever." And then if they go, "Well, you sweated too much on this question, you're guilty." Like they're gonna freak out.
Well, they can't say you're guilty, though, because it's completely inadmissible and not scientifically based. So, it'd be like if the guy is, hesitant to do a lie detector test, well, what is he hiding? Versus, the innocent guy will be like, yeah, I got nothing to hide. It's that argument where it's like, well, we shouldn't live in a surveillance state. It's like, well, why? You got something to hide? Well, no, I just don't think we need fucking cameras everywhere I go,
Fun stuff.
Precisely. But I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the very first early polygraphs and its creator, William M. Marston.
Dr. Marston and emotions. It's 18th of July, and Dr. William Marston demonstrates complicated device whereby he claims he can determine and compute comparative emotions of blondes, brunettes, and redheads. Says Marston,
"This is the sphygmomanometer, an instrument which measures the subject's blood pressure in the arm. This is the chymograph drum, which records the breathing. The breathing is taken with the pneumograph around the subject's chest. We are now going to test the girl's reactions to gambling."
Taking in inventive doctor's tests, our blonde, brunette, and redhead try their hand and luck and show their emotions at roulette. The wheel of fortune spins, and all wrapped up in Dr. Marston's paraphernalia, girls have their various reactions recorded. Here's chymograph with indicator showing one girl's reaction to game of chance. Needle is moved by subject's breathing. Here we see how redhead reacts to gambling, and as she wins, Marston's emotion finder indicates that redheads show most emotion when gambling. Now girls are taking reaction tests in matters pertaining to love. Watching love scene, all girls show some signs of emotional response to a romantic scene, but not all show a similar reaction. Kinograph shows it's the brunette who wants to be loved. Now here's test to show which of three is most susceptible to shock or fright. Taking a look at the kinograph, as we go through that again, Dr. Marston and science show blondes are easiest to scare.
So William Moulton Marston was born on May 9th, 1893 in Massachusetts. He was educated at Harvard. He married Sarah Elizabeth Holloway in 1915, and his new wife received her BA in psychology that same year. In 1918, his wife Elizabeth would receive her LLB from the Boston University School of Law in 1918, being basically just one of 3 women graduates from the school that year.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, well, good for her. Like that was still in the age of, like, you know, oh, women shouldn't do this book learning.
They didn't have the vote yet.
And, like, she still achieved all that, right?
So 3 women graduates from the School of Law that year. William Marston was married to one, and he was actually very influenced by a lot of the early suffragists, feminists, and birth control advocates at the time. Marston sees himself, or I guess saw himself, as the father of the polygraph. I was reading his FBI file, actually, and in 1938, Gillette used his lie detector in an advertisement, basically comparing Gillette razors to competitors. The FBI file states in a July 19th, 1939 memo, quote, "The lie detector machine would simply show the veracity of the answers and thus help establish the superiority of Gillette blades over the others." So like a razor company is using a lie detector in an advertisement to just say, like, see, these people are being truthful, you know, using Marston's lie detector. They are being truthful. They aren't paid actors. They're just regular people telling you what they're thinking.
Okay, question 1, and you can have 10 seconds to think about this answer. Gillette, is it the best a man can get?
It is the best they can get. I don't know. I haven't shaved in like a year and whatever since the plague hit, so I'm not even sure what the latest razor technology is. But I use like I had originally used like the Gillette Mach 3 for like a decade, and then after that I had been using like the Gillette Fusion. So I am kind of on board with the whole Gillette thing until I stopped shaving when the pandemic happened, and now I got like this fucking beard and mustache and like a really sexy soul patch too, if you're imagining what I look like.
See, I gave up on Gillette once that commercial came out that hurt my feelings, so I flushed it down the toilet. That's what I did.
Oh no!
You know you didn't flush it; it just got in the toilet and you had to pick it out.
No, I flushed it. Yeah.
I don't know what commercial that is. What's going on? I don't have TV. I'm not up on the commercials.
Was that the whole, like, men, we can do better, like Gillette commercial?
Yeah, and then a bunch of people pooped their pants about it.
Oh yeah, what a bunch of little wusses.
It wasn't even saying anything all that radical. It was just like, hey, like, we have some shit. Maybe we should talk about it. Like, that was the extent. And people were like, oh no, Gillette thinks that we might have a flaw. Just ban Gillette.
Only children? Fuck.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says and there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Young men,
and small.
I am strong.
I am strong.
But some is not enough. That's not how we treat each other, okay?
Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Let my children wrestle. They're not going to be little sissy boys and not touch a bunch of other boys. They're going to be manly boys and touch other boys.
It's like, hey, men, we got some shit that maybe we got to talk about as men, and we got to like unpack and fucking sort our shit out so that we aren't like hurting people. And a bunch of guys like lost their shit over it, thus proving the fucking point,
Yeah, take a look at the history of the world. There's been a bunch of different societies. You think we just like did the society like perfect the first try? You think we just like built the society without any biases or fucked up shit in the background? No, we have some room for improvement. We didn't do it right the first time, we have some buffer room to improve.
Exactly.
There we are, part 1 of lie detection. Tune in for part 2 next week. Or join our Patreon to listen now. We'll return with more of the life story of Dr. William Marsden and his unconventional life, and dive deeper into the modern history of lie detectors. But, playing us out this week we have, from 1929, Helen Kane with her song, Button Up Your Overcoat. See you in the after show where Leon will be doing a callback to an off-pod classic, Sexy Questions.
Listen, big boy, now that you got me made, goodness, but I'm afraid something's gonna happen to you. Listen, big boy, you got me hooked and how I would die if I should lose you now. Button up your overcoat when the wind is free. Take good care of yourself, you belong to me. Eat an apple every day, get to bed by 3. Take good care of yourself, you belong to me. Be careful crossing streets, ooh, cut out sweet, ooh, lay off meat, ooh. You'll get a pain and ruin your tum-tum. Wear your flannel underwear when you climb a tree. Oh, take good care of yourself, you belong to me. Button up your overcoat when the wind is free. Oh, take good care of yourself, you belong to me. When you sass a traffic cop, use diplomacy. Take good care of yourself, you belong to me. Beware of frozen prawns, ooh, ducks and buns, ooh, peroxide blondes, ooh. You'll get a pain and ruin your bankroll. Keep the spoon out of your cup when you're drinking tea. Oh, take good care of yourself, you belong to me. Don't sit on hornets' tails, ooh, or on nails, ooh, or third rails, ooh. You'll get a pain and ruin your tum-tum. Keep away from bootleg hooch when you're on a spree. Oh, take good care of yourself, you belong to me.
Okay, so welcome, occultists, to Leon's sexy question. And today's sexy question is, do you eat ass? And To be perfectly honest, my answer is no. In my early 20s, when I was just first sexually active, I ate a couple of asses, and it was neither good nor bad. But I've been working in long-term care and have people shit into my hands while I stare at the asshole. I've had my fingers in hundreds of asses while I dug shit out of old people, gave them suppositories and enemas and whatnot, which completely desexualized assholes for me. So whenever someone is like, oh yeah, fucking put it in my ass, I'm like, nope, don't want to do it. Or oh, come fucking eat my ass. I'm like, nope, don't want to do it. And I won't have my ass eaten either because I know where the fuck's been and it's no good. So yeah, that's the question. Do you eat ass? Reply in the comments, send us some video shit, maybe write us a letter. We've got our P.O. box somewhere at ovpod.ca. Yeah, do you eat ass? That's all I've got. That's Leon's sexy question. Go hard.
I would do it, but I don't think I would want it done to me.
I mean, I get
just not into it.
I mean, I'm not saying don't do it to me. I'm just saying I'm not sure how I would feel about it. I'd be afraid of doing something disgusting, But I mean, I would totally just go in there like a fucking bird and some fucking watermelon or something, just
bird on a watermelon.
Yeah. I'll post the comic I'm referring to in a.
Oh, it's a reference. Oh, okay.
Like a woodpecker
tree, just and then there you go. I mean, if it works for her, if it doesn't, then I guess I won't. But because consent and all that. But I don't know. I've done it before. I would do it again.
Yeah, see, I say I do for clout because that's the thing to do, but I've had far too many prostate exams for my age to view that area favorably. I don't get it. You do you, but no thanks.
Well, there's a lot of nerve endings, on around the asshole, and there's so.
Oh, I've had all this explained to me by partners. I will tell you that.
There's very seldom like stimulus, so you just gotta dive in there, and go because they're very seldom stimulated.
I get it. I do. Outside of a sexual context, that's where the poo-poo comes from. All this, I get it. I really do. But
if they're showered and things are clean, they recently shit and they showered, and then everything's clean and everyone's ready to go.
That's what I'm saying. In the heat of the moment, outside of it, sure, I get it. But in the heat of the moment, I'm fucking it. I'm fucking it.
And if you're going down on her, it's only an inch away. You may as well keep going,
No judgment to those that aren't comfortable with it. I believe all activities in the bedroom should be consensual. Both participants should be enthused about everything that's going on. I even somebody tolerating something for the benefit of their partner makes me uncomfortable. I like people to be enthused about what's going on, but if both of you are into it, I think I would gravitate towards if both people were into it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you're into it, I will help scrub wherever because I'm very supportive of it. But I'll just sit back in a different room and not partake.
I think the lines are wouldn't do it, would do it if asked, and would asked to do it. I think those are the three lines, and I think I'm in the would do if asked category.
I would maybe ask to do it. That's kind of where I'm at.
Is there any more of this beer left?
Oh, you only get one. Get what you get and you don't get upset. That's what I tell my 6-year-old.
I'm fucking drunk as shit and high as shit, and I need to go to bed because I work tonight.
Can we have the dong dong sound effect from Law and Order now?
Dun 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 dun.
If you want to get back to us about Leon's sexy question of do you eat ass? If you're a patron, at Leon on the Patreon Discord, and someone will catch it. If you want to send us an email, it's at feedback@offpod.ca. That's ovpod.ca. And if you want to send us a letter because you're bizarre and a human, or not a human,
or you want to support unionized post office workers, by the way, support our union posties. Just throwing that out there, people.
Send us bullshit at offpod. P.O. Box 21028, Grosvenor Park, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, S7H5N9. You can find that at offpod.ca/contact.
I like how you pronounce
Actually-
Grosvenor, even though it's like
Pronounced Grosvenor.
actually pronounced Grosvenor, but people will spell it if you don't say Grosvenor. I like.
Grosvenor Park, but it's spelled Grosvenor, which is stupid.
Stupid like Idlewild.
Diddly Widdly?
Idly Widdly.
Diddly Widdly.
Leon, go to bed.
Oh, he's fucked off already.
Oh, he's fucked off already. Okay.
Yeah,
Love you, Leon.
Yeah, just so you know, I think he took his sleeping pills recently, and I think they're just kicking in because he started like nodding. So,
He's like sleeping at his little like barn red desk there.
If there's
Oh,
one
so
thing I
cute.
know about sleeping pills, they are best paired with Saskatchewan liquors and beer. Remember, kids, do drugs.
do not take medical advice for a podcast.
Yeah, don't take advice from a podcast, especially one as fucking stupid as this one.
We baked and ate a
you
plum
will
cake.
take advice from a stupid podcast like this one,
saying-
might I recommend you join our Patreon so that Leon can get some extra money so that he can like look after his son in the middle of a fucking pandemic while he's a pandemic healthcare worker. So there you go. Join. If there is a reason to join our Patreon, it's Leon, because he's got a boy that he's trying to look after and he's working as a healthcare worker in the middle of a fucking pandemic. So yeah, join our Patreon just for that, if nothing else.
Yeah, and your money isn't being wasted there's two responsible people. Those responsible people being the radio demon and Sage looking after the money, and like we're investing it back into the podcast. Like we just built using Patreon money the editing computer that's going to last us for the next like 5 to 10 years. So like our editing capabilities are good for the next 5 to 10 years because of the patrons. We're also saving for road trips, upgrading equipment, all kinds of shit. So your money's going right back into the show.
And if you're like good, maybe we can like take this editing computer and also make it a server or something, just so you can download straight from the source.
Not to mention, Ood needs his gaming computer so that he can game with y'all on Final Fantasy 14.
That's right. Leon's thing is push to talking. So